Ilara was 17, and the world was already beginning to fray at the edges. She saw it in the fine lines that were not yet there, but felt imminent around her mother's eyes, a map of weariness and quiet disappointments. She felt it in the fragile, fleeting beauty of the apple blossoms in the orchard behind their cottage. One day, a riot of pink against the blue sky. The next, a sad confetti on the damp grass. Life, in all its bustling, muddy, human glory, seemed to her a slow, inexorable march towards decay. She feared not death, but the fading, becoming invisible, in the deep, forgotten woods where the shadows pooled thick as oil. There lived a woman known only as the Keeper of the Glen. The village spoke of her in hushed tones, a mixture of fear and longing. She was ageless, they said. Her beauty was not of bloom, but of preservation, like a perfect insect trapped in amber. Driven by a yearning that gnawed at her bones, Ilara sought her out. She found the cottage not made of wood, but of woven, living thorn, its windows gleaming with a light that had no source. The keeper was there, seated at a loom of silver threads. She was breathtaking, her skin smooth as polished alabaster, her hair a cascade of night without a single strand of gray. But her eyes were wrong. They were the color of stagnant water, holding no warmth, only a deep, patient stillness. "I see the fear in you, child," the keeper said, her voice like dry leaves shifting. "The fear of time, of dust." Ilara fell to her knees. "I don't want to fade. I want to stay, as I am forever." A smile touched the keeper's lips, a crack in the alabaster. Forever is a heavy word, but youth. Youth can be a condition, a state of being, not a gift, but a pact. She offered a pact, sealed not in blood, but in a single, glistening tear. Lara's tear of desperate hope, caught in a vial of obsidian. The keeper promised eternal youth, a body that would never know age, fatigue, or the withering touch of years. Ilara, drowning in her dread, saw only the salvation. She did not read the subtext woven into the silver threads, as the ancient serpentine script that spelled not youth, but stasis. The change began subtly. Her skin, always fair, took on a luminous, pearlescent quality. Her joints became unnaturally supple. She found she could go days without food or water, feeling only a dry, cool thirst. The villagers whispered, half in awe, half in revulsion. She was becoming a statue of a girl. Then the shedding. It started with a terrible itch across her scalp. She scratched, and a cascade of her sunset red hair came away in her hands. Not broken, but released from the root. In its place grew a fine, smooth layer of skin, patterned with the faintest suggestion of scales. She screamed, but the sound was thin, reedy. The real horror bloomed in the mirror. Her eyes, once a warm hazel, were leaching of their color, the irises thinning two vertical slits of jet black. Her tongue, when she gasped, tasted the air, and it felt long forked, sensitive to tremors she could not see. The keeper's eternal youth was not preservation. It was transformation. She was not being kept. She was being remade into something that did age, but on a geological scale, a creature of cold blood and endless silent years. She fled back to the thorn cottage, her heart a trapped bird beating against her changing ribs. "You lied," she accused, her voice now carrying a sibilant hiss beneath it. The keeper watched her unmoved. "I promised eternal youth. I did not specify the form. Flesh is weak, child. It rots, it sags, it weeps. The form I offer is superior. It is strength, it is permanence. The serpent does not wrinkle, it only grows." Ilara felt a pressure in her jaw, a deep ache as her teeth loosened and fell out, replaced by sharp, needle-like fangs that dripped with a venom her own body now synthesized. Her spine elongated with a series of sickening pops, forcing her to crouch, then to crawl. Her legs fused together in a nightmare of reforming bone and muscle, skin stretching and sealing into a powerful, sinuous tail covered in iridescent scales of emerald and gold. The final betrayal was the loneliness. She tried to go home. She dragged her new, monstrous body to the edge of her family's orchard at twilight. She saw her mother through the window, kneeling by the hearth, her face aged a decade and a month by grief. Her little brother was drawing a picture, a stick figure with long red hair, labeled Ilara in clumsy letters. Ilara opened her mouth to call to them. What emerged was not a name, but a low, resonant hiss that carried on the wind. Her mother looked up, startled, peering into the gloom. For a fleeting second, their eyes met. Nera saw not recognition, but primal, animal terror. Her mother scrambled back, pulling her son away from the window, shielding him with her own body, a body that would age, that would break. That was everything Ilara had feared, and now everything she would have given her soul to reclaim. A sob racked Ilara's serpentine frame, but no tears came. Serpents cannot cry. The ducts had sealed. Her grief had no outlet. A desert of sorrow trapped inside a beautiful, terrible, unchanging prison. She was now the Serpent Queen, a creature of mesmerizing alien beauty and terrifying power, coiled in the heart of the deepest forest. The animals bowed to her. The very trees seemed to bend in her presence. She could live for 1,000 years, her scales forever gleaming, her form forever strong. But on quiet nights, when the moon was high, she would ascend the tallest oak and stare at the distant, warm lights of the village. She would remember the feel of grass under human feet, the ache of a day's labor in human muscles, the hot, salt taste of human tears. The witch had given her exactly what she asked for. She would never fade, she would never wrinkle. And in that perfect, cursed preservation, she understood the true meaning of eternity. It was not an abundance of time. It was the absence of everything that made time worth enduring. It was watching from a cold, beautiful distance as the world you loved. The fragile, fading, mortal world lived, loved, and died without you forever. The drama was over. The tragedy was just beginning, and it would last for centuries. Years folded into decades, and the village at the forest's edge became a town, then a fading memory. Roads paved over old footpaths, and the whispering woods were pushed back, though never fully tamed. A new fear took root there, a local legend of the jeweled bane, a guardian spirit or a demon, depending on who told the tale. It was said to dwell in the heart of the blackthorn thicket, a creature of emerald and gold whose gaze could freeze the blood, and whose venom could preserve a man in a perfect agonized paralysis for 100 years. The Serpent Queen, Ilara, was the truth behind the myth. Her consciousness, once a human girl's, had stretched and adapted to the vast, silent architecture of her new existence. Time did not pass for her. It accumulated, layer upon suffocating layer, like sediment at the bottom of a forgotten sea. Her mind became a museum of a single, devastating day. The feel of her hair leaving her scalp, the terror in her mother's eyes, the searing permanence of the choice she had made. Her power was real. She could command the roots of trees to snare, the mists to coil into phantom shapes. The forest creatures were her uneasy subjects, offering a kind of cold, instinctual fealty. But it was a hollow sovereignty. She ruled over decay and renewal, over the mindless cycle of the wild. While her own soul was trapped in a single, unchanging moment of regret, the witch, the keeper of the glen, was gone. Her thorn-weave cottage had dissolved into the earth, its purpose fulfilled. Ilara sometimes wondered if the witch had ever been a woman at all, or merely a manifestation of the forest's cruel, transactional logic, a consumer of desperate dreams, paid in twisted flesh. The true agony, the drama that played on an infinite loop in her heart, was sensory. Her serpentine form was magnificent, but it was a prison of exquisite deprivation. She could no longer feel the comforting weight of a woolen blanket, only the coarse bark of a tree or the chill smoothness of a river stone. She could not taste her mother's honey cakes, only the coppery temps of a rabbit's blood or the dusty essence of the air. The world had become a panorama of scent and vibration, beautiful and detailed, but utterly devoid of warmth. Most of all, she missed tears. The pressure of sorrow would build within her, a vast internal ocean with no shore, would press against the back of her lidless eyes, a desperate need to weep, to expel the grief. But the anatomy for weeping was gone. The sorrow had to be reabsorbed, recycled in the silent acid chambers of her being. It was the most profound loneliness imaginable, to grieve without witness, even from oneself. One autumn, a century after her transformation, a different kind of human entered her wood. not a woodsman or a lost child, but a young man with a scholar's satchel and a look of profound sadness that mirrored her own. He was seeking the legend, he said aloud to the silent trees, not for glory, but for understanding. His name was Leo, and he carried a book of transcribed village tales, one of which was about a beautiful, vain girl who vanished into the woods and was cursed. Ilara watched him from the high canopy, her sinuous body perfectly still. His sadness was not the sharp, desperate fear of her mother, but a deep, weary ache that called to the ancient human memory buried within her. When he finally stumbled into her clearing, tripping over her massive, coiled tail, he did not scream. He fell back, his book scattering, and looked up into her face. He saw not just a monster, but the tragedy in her eyes, those vertical slits of endless black that held an intelligence far too sorrowful for a beast. "You're her," he breathed, his voice trembling not with terror, but with awe. "The girl from the story." A sound escaped her, a low, resonant hum that was the closest she could come to a sigh. She could not confirm it. She could only watch. Leo, emboldened by a scholar's curiosity or a lonely man's need, did not flee. He began to visit. He would read to her from his books, poetry, histories, the mundane records of a world that had moved on without her. He spoke of time in a way she had forgotten, not as a weight, but as a river that carried change, loss, but also new love, new art, new dawns. He spoke of his own grief, the family he had lost to a plague, the life that felt empty. For the first time in 100 years, Ilara felt a connection, however fragile. Here was a mortal, willingly stepping into her eternity, offering the warmth of his fleeting presence. She would lower her great head, and he would, with a bravery that made her ancient heart ache, rest his hand on the smooth scales between her eyes. The human touch was a fire and a bomb, a memory and a fresh wound all at once. It could not last. Leo aged, his brown hair silvered, the straightness of his back began to bow. The vibrant life in his eyes deepened into the gentle fatigue of a life lived. She watched, helpless. As time did to him what she had so feared in, she saw now that it was not a theft, but a narrative. Each line was a story. Each gray hair was a season survived. On his final visit, he was very old. He could no longer make the journey deep into the wood, so she came to the edge, the place where the trees thinned. He sat on a fallen log, breathing heavily. "I am going to fade now, lady," he said, using the title he had given her. A sad, kind smile touched his weathered face. "I find I am not afraid of it anymore. It seems peaceful, a rest." Ilara stared at him, her immense body coiled in the shadows. The ocean of unshed tears within her threatened to drown her. She wanted to tell him to stay. She wanted to offer him the cursed bargain, to trap him in amber beside her so she wouldn't be alone. But the memory of her own mother's terrified face stopped her. She would not propagate her own curse. All she could do was gently rest her head on the ground beside his feet, a gesture of utter submission and sorrow. Leo understood, placed his old spotted hand on her snout one last time. "I am sorry," he whispered, "for your forever." Then he rose with difficulty and walked slowly back toward the setting sun, leaving her in the gathering twilight. She watched him go until his form was lost in the golden haze. The forest was silent. The legend of the jeweled bane would persist, but the one soul who had seen the girl within the serpent was gone. Ilara turned and slid back into the profound darkness of her woods, the scales on her face still holding the phantom warmth of a human hand. The eternal youth the witch had given her was now fully understood. It was the perpetual, unending funeral for her own humanity, attended by no one, in a cathedral of endless, silent trees. She was forever 17, and forever grieving, in a world that had learned, long ago, how to say goodbye.